Hey, welcome, buddy. Sorry for the messy hair. It is very early here this morning and I can't sleep. And I figure since I've done so much of the helicopter pilot stuff, and I have, well, over 12 years experience as a firefighter, and I kind of don't want to let those experiences go as I get older. I'm just going to launch a live podcast. Yeah, the magic of not wanting to edit, right? So, where do we get started, right? I titled this the beginning. I didn't even write it out. I'm pretty much just one guy just sitting here, and I want to tell you about this firefighter career that I just kind of stumbled upon back in 2008. So, I was working security at City Hall, and I kept seeing these at the time the Orlando Fire Department their station was being built. They were off of Magnolia, and they were going to move to their current station that you can see it on I-4. And I kept seeing them going in and out, in and out. They had their headquarters were temporarily upstairs. I believe it was the seventh floor in City Hall. And so I befriended some of them, started talking to them and finding out because I always had this curiosity about the fire department, but I wasn't quite sure. Like, everybody thinks like, oh well, I just don't want to see all this crazy stuff and um, things that have to do with children being hurt, things like that. Um, and so that kind of shied me away from it. But just kept asking, hey, what's the day to day? What do you guys do? How's the training? And so little by little, I keep asking. And in this security job I had, we, sometime, we're sitting at a desk and read the paper, and Lord and behold, one day it comes out that they were recruiting firefighters, and they were going to actually sponsor them to go in and get the training and so that was all paid for. Plus, they would give you some pay, and so I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's not a bad deal." And so I applied. I applied to a couple places, a couple of these programs around that time. They were just being made available, and one of the departments had even like a sponsorship program where so there was a part, and they're still doing this. They just renamed it. So there was this test called a CPAT, which I think that's still around, but now there's a company that administers it, and then you got to pay some money. Used to be the departments were just saying, "Hey, come and do this. We're going to pay our employees." They were really hungry to get new people in, and it was kind of cool how it was done. It wasn't so commercialized like now, where I think it's called a fire team, where you're taking um, the CPAT and something else that it was a video test, pretty much just to gauge how you made decisions on the go. So I'm, that might have been called the BPAD. I don't know, video test, video aptitude, what have you. And there was a civil test that you had to take too. So anyhow, I'm going through both these processes. The one that sponsored the most, which is the department I ended up working with, um, I obviously was successful at getting through. Now, it took some time, so I was sitting there like, okay, I mean, I had a job at the time, so I didn't really mind. Um, and so it wasn't that big of a deal to like, I get it. If I don't, like, who cares? I'm just trying this out, right? So I sat there and just kind of waited. I want to say from the time that I applied, it was at least a good 10, 11 months. And finally, by January of 2008, they said, "Hey, we're ready. This is going to actually happen." After taking all the tests, I even had to take. There was tests, so at the time I didn't have a college degree, and at the time, there was a test that I had to take. It was called a tape test, and I remember I went to take this test. Don't fault me, y'all. I'm a very I'm a frugal person. I'm not gonna say I'm cheap, but I'm frugal. I like to save where I can, right? So I went the Tico down in Osceola. You could take that tape test for $10. So I went down there and I took the test, and so I I got everything good except for the there was a math part, and it was just like, I, you never been really great at math. So anyhow, so I'm calling Atman. They said, hey, blah blah blah, and um, they said, okay, well that's great, but you need to pass it all. So that same day, I literally had to go to Mid Florida, which I don't think exists anymore, and go and take that math part again and pay $30 just to take the math part. And so I remember doing that. I remember putting all the package in. It was not an easy process. That's what when I went to um I got to the point where I had made, I'm fast forwarding here, but when I knew that I didn't want to, continue working for that particular fire department anymore, it was hard. After 12 years, I was like, if I do more than 12 years, I'm definitely staying. So if I'm gonna make this decision, it's gotta be now or never. But to get back to the process was hard. I remembered how hard it was to get in to that particular process, and it was definitely not, they just didn't hand it to you. You went in there after putting that package through. We got the initial orientation that everybody gets as a employee for a county. And then after that, we started our training. So the first training we did was the EMT training. And so the EMT training, oh man, let's put some names to some of it. So I remember the first thing I remember about EMT training. I think so. The guy that headed it up was Jason Singleton, and then Robin Retzloff did a lot of the training. Oh my God, it was fun training. Believe it or not, like, yes, we had to learn a lot. Yes, we had quizzes every Friday. We had to take a quiz, and you couldn't fail it. And so it was stressful, but those guys made it so fun to kind of go through it. So even though we were kind of like, we're recruits, I guess is what they call this. So coming from the military, I was like, well, it wasn't quite like being in the military, but it was paramilitary. But I gotta say, EMT training, I had fun doing EMT training. Um, you know, working out, getting um, ready for the academy too. So they wanted you to, kind of come in. We would do a little workout before um, we would go into the classroom. So for us, that lasted about 5 weeks, and then we had to take that NREMT test. I remember it was through Pearson View, and it was one of those tests that when it came down to um, how it was structured, the test, it was whether you knew the material or not. So if you started getting asked the same question, that meant that maybe you weren't scoring so well on that particular subject. And I can't exactly, there's a name for it, I'm pretty sure. Uh, I want to say something like cumulative, but I'm sure that's probably not right. But anyhow, it would just kind of target uh, what you knew, and so if you kept seeing the same material over and over, you're like, oh man. And I remember there was a few of those that I did see, and I was like, okay, well, just answer better or what have you. But eventually, I got through that test, and it was past the score. I think I got like an 88 or something. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst score. So moving on, so we finished EMT school and those 5 weeks, and now we're gonna go into the fire academy. Now, granted, we I believe had to wait until the that class started. This was back in the Central Florida Fire Academy. Does not exist anymore either. So we were waiting for that class to start. I had my folder until just the other day. I had this folder for that particular class and all the notes I took, and finally, you got to start just you can't pile up junk like you know. Um, so I finally had to throw some of that stuff away, which it's conflicting because it's part of the life that I lived for many years, and so, but unfortunately, you just gotta, you know, sometimes you gotta close some doors of the past, but that doesn't mean that you can't revisit, and that's why I think that's the purpose of this podcast. I'm sitting here. It's way too early to go out for a walk. There's nothing to do if I got in my car and started driving around. So rather than just sit there, and then if you go somewhere, most of the time you're gonna be spending money. So rather than do that, I'm here making a podcast, hoping I get some viewers and maybe hoping I get to answer some questions. But if not, this is gonna get recorded, and now I don't have to sit there and edit it. Have to get creative with how I depict some of the stuff because, like I said, I went through this stuff in 2008, and as y'all remember, the phone technology wasn't as advanced back then. So I, you gotta think um, some of the pictures that I initially took weren't the best pictures because they were just bone pictures, and so some of the stuff that I have is more the stuff that picture wise, it's more of the stuff that the later years. But I did take a lot of pictures and videos, and just there's a lot of memories that I still have, and a lot of fond memories. So, all right. So to get back on track with okay, we were at the fire academy, right? So about to start it. I want to say it was around springtime. So I want to say we started around April, and there was kind of like a month there where we are just getting physically trained up. EMT school was over. We were probably studying for our NREMT test, and so we're just doing some PT and fun as needed is what I want to think is what was going on. That's kind of like they're pretty. I'm pretty sure a lot of departments do this, where sometimes the training just doesn't line up, so that they get you doing. There's logistic stuff that you could do while you're waiting for class to start. So we go in to the Central Florida Fire Academy. Uh, Dave Stern. Dave Stern, Orlando. He was one of the instructors, one of the cadre instructors, and Hendrix from Lake County. I can't remember. Hendrix was a nice guy, but Dave. Oh, anybody that knows Dave is they'd understand. I mean, he's just tough. He's tough, um, but funny at the same time. Oh my god. Ah, some fun times at Central Florida Fire Academy. Getting our gear. Obviously, that was something else. Bunker gear for anybody that knows the process of getting it all together and learning how to put on your gear, put on your air pack. Go start going interior. Learning your knots, uh, your how to roll hose. It was just an experience. Now, I think minimum standards back then was uh 450 hours, I think it's what it was. So you had fire one where you were initially in the classroom just, for 1 or 2 weeks, just getting all these PowerPoints and you had this little guide. And I remember Kyle Baker and myself would sit there and study because it like, hey, we're getting paid for this, we didn't want to fail, so uh we have this little study group where he come to my house, and we just sit there and study, go through some of the stuff that we had learned, and then we got outside, we got paired into different squads. We had Major. What was Fernando Valentin was our class leader. Now, I had military experience, so initially I thought I wanted to be the class leader, and then Fernando was a major in the army, so it went to him. But oh my god, it was even better that it went to him because in the end, like, there was a lot to learn. So to have a leadership position might have not been the thing at the time. So I ended up in squad three with Ryan Hay was the squad leader, and we had Stanley, Ryan Stanley, which I didn't really know, but this kid he was a legacy firefighter. His dad was a firefighter, and he had a lot of people in his family that were firefighters. But he was just like a little skinny kid back then, and it was just funny. And we had some years later, funnily enough, moving forward, I was at Station 58 working, and I got to meet his brother. His brother was a Proby, which him, Neil and Ryan are so different. Um, but yeah, to go back. some fun times. So, anyways, to go back to the lineup that I can remember, Paul Roach, I believe, was in our squad too. Um, a squad also, I should say, not to confuse the number of the squad. It was squad three, and Paul has since passed away. Believe he got cancer a few years, and a few years back, I remember I went to Paul's. Paul reached a period in his career that he just couldn't do the job anymore, um, which should have been a big indicator to us, but we didn't really realize. And so he left. I want to say it was like 2015, 2016. He left, and I believe he passed away like at least 2 years ago. I remember I was living in Winter Springs, so must have been around 2 years ago. Kyle called me. He's like, "Hey, man, he's really sick," and those moments where you kind of wish you would have done something, and you had to do something else. I had a job interview, and I went to that job interview, but Kyle was calling me, and he was like, "Hey, man, if you want to, I'm gonna go up and see Paul, and it just didn't line up. I wish I could have gotten up there, but I couldn't get up there, and he passed away unfortunately. But he was in a squad. Yeah, sorry to bring the mood down, y'all. But those are the facts of life. And who? Man. So I'm blanking on who else. So Ryan Hay, um, Stanley, myself, and Paul Roach. I want to say it was five man squads or five recruit squads in 5-person recruit squads, but I might be wrong. Oh yeah, Malone. Malone was in a squad too. Um, can't remember his first name. See, this is why I'm doing this because I you get older and you start forgetting people's names and stuff. Let me see if I can. I know I got a picture of Malone. We uh, we hung out at some point and at some social function. There's Malone right there. Um, but yeah, that uh, that was squad three, and you had. Now I'm not gonna name buddy, but you had squad one was led by Jorge Hernandez, who's man. I keep seeing those guys on like a lot of them on social media, and they're just they're still rocking and rolling over there, and it's cool. It's cool to see that those that decided to continue their career are doing well. I believe Stanley is lieutenant now. So is Jorge. Um, I still talk to a lot of people that it's good in the sense that I'm in a field that a lot of people aspire to go to. And so sometimes they'll give me a call, and not too long ago, I ended up at a fire station just providing advice, pro bono advice to this young man that is at a crossroads and he's thinking about doing aviation instead of firefighting, which it's a thing, and they're very similar. I kind of wish it if I would have been able to do my aviation stuff and keep being a firefighter, I think I would have done it. Honestly, I think the schedule, especially now going with um, the schedules are changing. They're going with a 24/72 model and doing that. Oh my God, can you imagine that? Like you could work a shift if you didn't get um, killed at night, which by that I mean for those that don't know, sometimes you have to take calls after midnight, and usually if you get one call after midnight, um, okay, that's not too bad. But if you get more than two, three, four, that's what we mean by getting killed after midnight. Um, I remember little for, little foreshadowing. Herbie Palant and myself at Station 63, where we left at 10 at night and we didn't come back till 6 in the morning. Just getting calls. Like we were literally clear call and roll into the bay just to go into another call. Fun times, fun times. All right, so we were at the fire academy. I took a little tangent there, and you're gonna see that. That's how my brain works. We go into little tangents there, but all right, without giving you all the minutia and keeping it entertaining, because half of this you have to be a good storyteller to do this stuff, and that or you have to have phenomenal editing skills. And like I said, I am trying to stay away from editing. That's why I'm sitting here live doing this. So I already edited enough for my other channel, Skybomb, and it. I'm not trying to add more work. I'm just trying to complement a little bit because I did have an idea with this channel, and I just for some reason I neglected to go into that. So all right, so Fire Academy. Couple months, right? So you're learning all your stuff, going through Fire One, Fire Two. I want to say it was sometime June, is mid June. We got done with the Fire Academy, so we might have began in March. It might have been where we finished in sometime February. We had maybe a couple weeks to study for our test and started the school in March. That starts to make a little bit more sense in my mind now. And then we finished the academy. It was 3 to 4 months, and by June, we're we got our certificates. We take our state test, and we go on to orientation. So at that time, I want to say they told us orientation might be 8 weeks, but because we were seeing the same cadre, and so it man, freaking hair is just disaster. Don't hold that against me. Normally, that's just bed hair right there. Um, but no, I just made it worse. Yay. Anyways, you're not here for my hair, right? You're here for the stories, hopefully. Um, anyways, we finished in June, started orientation, 4 weeks. Now we're, no more Fire Academies people, so no more Dave Stern, no more Hendrix, no more Lieutenant Johnson. I used to love Lieutenant Johnson. He was so cool. Um, but yeah, we're done with the Fire Academy. Now we're in orientation. It's all Orange County people, and we start kind of learning, getting exposed to the people that we're going to actually work in the field with. So a lot of it was Jamal Frifa. There was a few other people that participated in this. I might have some. I know I have some yearbooks around here that we could probably flip through, but maybe we'll do that on the next podcast where we I have that in my hand. Right now, I got the phone, and I could probably show you a few things. A couple years ago, I made a folder of all the FD pictures that I pretty much took. Now, see, as you can see, I was just very enamored with Firestar. Um, great program that we walked away from. Um, one of the fire chiefs at the time, not gonna name any names, but he unfortunately, and I think it was just a sign of the times. So this program, Firestar, the last program was Air Methods had it. They were providing the pilots, and then we were providing the paramedics. And so I believe at the time, OmniFlight had all the they had all the Orlando Health helicopters. And so when we terminated with a little tangent, y'all, when we terminated with the Firestar program, what Air Methods did was they bought out OmniFlight, and instead of one helicopter in the particular area, they ended up with at that time three because they had Air Care One that was down in Kissimmee. They had Air Care Two at the time was at Claremont, and the Air Care Three was at South Seminole. Um, none of that. I believe maybe Air Care One is still down in Kissimmee at the airport, but all that has changed since. I believe now they have Air Care 4, Air Care 5. It's that program has grown. Um, and I don't honestly, I don't think the department I was working with had the foresight to make that program bigger. Now, it would have been really easy because we have a few departments, and like in the South Florida region, like I'm going to use like BSO, for example, or Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. They could have sent somebody to learn and see how they could have kept that within the fire department and maybe work on the budgets and things like that. But there, one of the reasons that I decided to take the difficult choice that I did was the leadership in that particular department was just it was a fractured leadership. And so, I mean, the people were great. Your average firefighter that was running the calls, they were great, but it was just, you know, once for some reason, a lot of the people that got into the admin world, they just, I don't know, either they forgot what the field was like or they just completely dissociated or they just didn't care. They were just focused on themselves. And so it things like that, like the Firestar program, like that was a given. Why would you give that to a private company if you can keep an asset like that and not even keep it, grow the asset, you know? But it wasn't on their mind frame. Um, they unfortunately just didn't know how to manage it well. And I know a lot of people that worked that they poured their heart and soul into that program. And so for a few, very few, minuscule, actually, I mean, you want to say you could put it on one person, but I don't think it was just him. Um, there had to be more involved in that decision, but for just the minuscule or the small fraction to shelf such a great program, it's very unfortunate. But luckily, the silver lining of this was that Orange County Sheriff's Office was able to take over that space that we held, and so now they actually that's their hangar now. They use their old hangar, obviously for they have maybe a couple of their aircraft in there. And I'll show you because we went over there and we took some pictures, and that's that's kind of part of it, right? Um, so they have a a few of their aircraft in their old hangar, but for the most part, the they have the other aircraft are in. Oh, okay. Hmm, I don't. Where are the? Oh, it's not. It's on my phone. Okay. I thought I was like, whoa, what's going on? So they this would be the old hangar. Just kind of bear with me for a sec. I got like everybody got 1,002 pictures in here. Mm, guess that was a while back. You remember these things, and it almost seems like it was just yesterday, but I guess it wasn't. It's a while ago. Mm, boy, yeah. See, I went. I try to do it the easy way and just look at the what it says helicopters on my page, but no, that might not be the best way. Bear with me. At least nobody's watching, so maybe if you get bored on this, just fast forward. I don't know how long it's gonna take me, but to find this, but I know I'm close. Oh, there we go. All right, that might be. See that there? That might be the old hand. No, that I don't think I took pictures of the old hangar per se. I don't know. It was that might be in the old hangar right there. Um, I think that was the newest helicopter that they had, and so this is probably in their current hangar. I'm not sure, but they have two and two. They have Orange County has, I believe, three 407s, and they'll hold me to this, and one 206 that they won't admit it publicly, but they're desperately trying to get rid of that 206 because 206 starts a little bit different and it's a little bit underpowered. So they probably would rather have the 407. All right, we went on a very large little tangent because we are at orientation. Somehow we ended up at Firestart, but let's try to get back. So the beginning, okay. We go through orientation. Takes 4 weeks. like I said, Jamal Frifa kind of comes to mind. Um, there was a few other people. I can't remember this guy's name. Uh, he was at 76. He ended up being nicer once I hit the field, but I, for some reason, there might have been a misunderstanding. But this person at one point it was kind of weird because they were like something happened where they thought I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, and I mean I was just I maybe I just didn't know any better, and so I got a little counseling out of it, but I kind of felt like I was like, whoa, like you just put me through all this training. Don't like let's not go the route that I'm thinking you want to go. But it got all worked out. I ended up it came station assignments, right? And so I ended up in Bithlo for my first station with Lieutenant Jim Butler. So we get our station assignments. I remember they encouraged us to maybe go meet our shifts. And so I went out to 82 in my own time. I met Jim and I met the crew. I believe at the time, John Paul Woolley, he's a lieutenant over there, little French guy. Um, Odie, oh Odie, he's funny. So he was there. Um, McCabe was there. Rich McCabe. Oh my God, he's not a firefighter anymore. Dude, I don't know I don't know what was up with that guy, but he just kind of went out of his way just to be a terrible person. And I don't know. Maybe it was my attitude at that time too. I'll put it on me too. Um, I'm not the easiest, but just me and him just never saw eye to eye. So, but funny. We had some funny times, but a lot of friction. Let's just put it like that. Um, Also, we had Robert Long. Now, talk about the total opposite. When it comes to Robert Long, one of the kindest human beings that I probably have run into. I'll tell you, when I did the whole career change, at sometimes I have to, um, what's the best way to, I want to say this? Everything's about sport, right? So, and sometimes I've run out of that support, but when it came down to, I remember I was staying with an ex at one point and up in Ohio. Um, and I was like, man, I really want to get back down to Florida. And I called Rob, and Rob was like, hey, man, I got a spare room here. And I was like, wait, man, well, how much money you want for the room? 'Cause- but you in this world, you very rarely you get something for nothing. But when it came to Rob, he was just an amazing human. So I stayed at his place a couple times, literally where I just lived there pretty much a few times, and There was never like rental agreement, like to the point where I was like, you know what? I felt like I would just buy things just to, because if you know me, I don't like to be a freeloader. Like that just doesn't feel good. Um, so I would be like, hey, let me buy this, let's cook this, just to justify. It. But at the end, what Rob did for me, like that it was true brotherhood right there. So, but now I'm foretelling, but meeting him, he was just a cool guy, like very up to the news. Um, so he was always on the TV watching the news and keeping abreast and just kind of opening my eyes to certain things, like some of the stuff that he was kind of onto definitely made sense. Other stuff was a little bit like, some of it could have been propaganda, what have you. But he would do the research, and if it was BS, for the most part, he was able to, if it didn't pass a smell test, it was just like, yeah, blah blah blah. They say this, but really, this is what's going on. And he was able to pretty much justify a lot of that. Um, but yeah, so who else did we have on the crew? Um, Aaron Warrington. Oh, Aaron. Uh, Aaron was a older firefighter. Um, I think deep down, Aaron was a nice lady. She was probably just misunderstood, um, and maybe a little bit over her head in that career field. But we tried. Um, Little friction there for sure. But what do you do? I don't want to talk bad about the person, but sometimes some career fields, and this has nothing to do with the whole, you're trying to go, wow, you're being sexist. No, yeah, I know plenty of capable female firefighters, um, but sometimes just people aren't suited for their career, and this happens too in the pilot world. There's pilots out there that probably shouldn't be pilots. You know, uh, we we got to pay the bills, right? So unfortunately, if you got to pay the bills and that's just the job that you have, yeah. So, but how do you get better, right? If you're substandard, there are things that you can do to improve, right? So there's these conferences, yeah, like we had those, at the end, it was target solutions. I believe we started with terms. It was like computer training that you could do. There was just firefighter skills that you could go over. Um, there was a bunch of stuff that you could just do to become a better firefighter. You could move stations. I did that. I moved to a couple of different places. Um, my career was not the easiest when you think about it, but I think I saw a lot during that career, during that time there. I saw a lot. Try to move the first couple years. It was hard. I really liked Jim. Um, but Jim was so when Jim was not supposed to be there. So Jim, it's 2008, right? So and around that time, they didn't have this before. you it was an old pension system as far as the Florida retirement system. But around that time, they allowed for one time you could switch your plan. And so what ended up happening is a few people thought that they could make some money before the house bubble went down. And so they switched their plan and they lost thousands of dollars. And I think Jim was in that group that lost a lot of money. And so he had to work a little bit longer, you know, to be able to afford retirement. So maybe, and he was always more adapt to EMS than fire. Um, I mean, he was a nurse, so um, very great. And when it came to EMS, which most of our job, that's what it was. It was 80% EMS for emergency medical services. For those that are watching that don't know, so we're getting to the top of the hour. I'm gonna wrap this up. It's gonna be a 1 hour. Um, I can't believe I've gone on speaking so long, but hey, Um, but to kind of wrap it up, so yeah, was working with Jim. We had Aaron, we had John Paul, we had McCabe, Rob. Rob was on the tanker. Jay Jennings, very cool dude. They used to call him Mumbles. Robert J. Jennings, but very, 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 very cool individual. I know I have old pictures here. Let me see. Let's see if I can find Jay. Oh, Jay Jennings. All empty stuff. And Malcolm Wirtz was the medic. Same, with finally made friends with Malcolm and Rich were really good friends, I guess. And so because some of the friction that I had with Rich kind of bled over with Malcolm, but I finally, you know, made good friends. Malcolm was a very smart guy. Can't take that away. He had just become a medic when I joined, um, and so it, like I said, at first there was a little bit of friction between us, but eventually was able to have a good working relationship with him. I'd run into him at different places, and it was cool. It was good stuff. Oh, again, through the pictures. Like I said, a lot of the pictures took a lot of the pictures while I was in. Maybe that one didn't make it there. I thought I had a picture of Jay. I bought this camera at one point, a Nikon, and I would take that Nikon and take a lot of pictures. Um, and oh man, let me see if I can do something here real quick. Hopefully that doesn't kill the screen. Make that smaller and go into files. I'm gonna give you the bootleg version of this picture because I know I have it on this computer, but obviously to show it to you on the phone from the computer, it's gonna take some thinking, and we're running out of time here. Well, not really running out of time, but like I said, I was gonna terminate this at the top of the hour because for the first time, I don't know if you want to watch somebody talk for so long. Maybe I'll work into the 2 or 3 hour range, but I I don't know. Camera roll, come on. Got my skydiving pictures there. No. What about the regular old pictures? PSO, fire rescue, Waverly Robinson, safety doors. All right. Come on. Oh, I'm into some of the old pictures. Goodness. No, I don't think it's gonna work, y'all. I was gonna take a picture of a picture and no. Got one of Valentine. Let me see if I can pull that up. That must have been. I had this photo bucket account. Old school, right? Photo bucket. And let me see if I can take this picture of Valentine real quick and show that. That was in the classroom. A picture of a picture. All right. Now we got that. All right. This is what I got, y'all. I was our class leader, Fernando Valentin. Um, that's what we wore. It was like the old mechanics uniform. It's what we used to wear for um, for our uniform while we were going to all the all the training, which we finished. We're already at the station. So on the next one, I'll talk about a little bit more how the station, first fires, things that I remember there. So I got to kind of make a mental note of what we were. If y'all have any questions too, be sure to drop them in the comments. Be willing to help anybody that's trying to get into the field. Even though I'm not active anymore, I can pretty much point you in the right direction. Also, do me a huge favor, sign up to Skybomb on my other channel that has 1.5 thousand subscribers. This is a tiny little channel, 26 right now. Hopefully, out of this, we'll grow it. It'll get into the algorithm. But thank you so much for watching. Uh, Also, the last finishing up when it comes to making these videos, right? Going live, this is time, y'all. So do me a huge favor. You don't have to, but if you can, if you find in your heart, right there, let me see. Oh, come on, focus camera. Right there. Scan that or scan this one. $1 or $2. I don't need that much. Some donations obviously helps. It encourages me to make more content, maybe get better equipment if this is worthwhile. But yeah, let's wrap it up. Let's all right, some outro music. I don't know. some like it's not even working because it's up. Anyways, all right, that's it. We'll see you on the next one. Comment, subscribe, take care.